So, how do we fix this shit? That would be my initial call to arms. That would be, I guess, the title of this video, most likely. And it was the best I could come up with just on the spot before I made a video, because I had several different ideas floating in my head. I thought, what's the best way to sum up my thoughts right now? And it would be, how do we fix all this shit? I, first off, would like to acknowledge that the reason I use that term is because so many of you out there know where I'm probably going with this, and many of you might think I'm leaning towards a particular direction. In other words, the question is, what shit are you talking about? What's going on in the world? What do we need to fix? And we all have very different opinions on what that is. And in order for us to ever move forward as human beings, we have to respectfully disagree and try to find solutions to the problems. This seems so utterly simple, but it seems to evade us because we're all strangers to each other. So we can just post on Twitter, respond to videos or comments and, pretty much feel vindicated in thinking we know better than other people. The shit I'm talking about is everything that we face as, I guess, the proletariats. I guess the bourgeoisie, the wealthy, the elites, the billionaires, right? They're just part of the problem, but they're a symptom of a larger issue, something we've always had, which is, it's not just inequality or inequity, because I'm very well aware in my own philosophical understanding of the world that we will never have equality. In other words, I'm not a socialist, I'm not a communist, although I do support social programs and I support communes, okay? These terms are really meaningless to me because in the big picture, I've never seen a successful one work, nor have I seen a successful capitalist society, unless you base that on wealth, progress, and growth. However, the wealthiest have done the best, by far exceeding the average proletariat, the working class, while your grandfather, your uncle, whoever it may be, have helped to build this empire. You're not reaping the amount of rewards that were probably, acquired by those who were your ancestors. In other words, it's always the blue-collar workers that get shit done. And what's happened is we've moved into an era now where you could be not just a white-collar worker, which we've always needed leadership, we've always needed people to represent us and to deal with the bookkeeping. I sure as hell don't want to do the bureaucracy. But we've also seen how it can be infiltrated and corrupted by various institutions. But the whole idea of the media and why the media was granted so many powers when our country was founded in the early days was specifically to keep a watch on presidents, to keep a watch on politicians, to make sure that they're on the up and up. And so instead of the media today being responsible for keeping a close eye on, politicians and calling out the BS, they're bought out by the politicians a lot of the time. And they're basically just spokespeople for one candidate or another. And so politics always takes the center stage in the shit we need to fix, right? But I don't necessarily think that there's a simple answer. I see that the playbook that I've been well aware of since I was younger, and I was reading a variety of different, I guess, predictions, they turned out to be, about where this country was going, the type of bullshit that the government was going to pull, the kind of division that was going to be sown knowingly. And so by the elite, by those who we put in office, and those who scream conspiracy theories, who there are a large amount of people out there who just say, oh, well, this guy's a conspiracy theorist. Look, I'm not a fan of Alex Jones. Hell, we argued personally when I first started on YouTube like 12 years ago. He was still small enough to where he would actually comment back And his team actually blocked me for asking questions. I was being rational. I was asking legitimate questions. But that was my introduction into thinking, wow, maybe these guys are hiding more than I thought, because I don't block people for commenting. If somebody disputes something I say, I'm all for explaining myself, because I don't say stupid shit, inflammatory shit, just to get a bunch of fucking attention and money and sell my, buff pills like Alex Jones does, right? These guys are all complete charlatans. They say a few true things that are extreme that he got actually from Bill Cooper, William Cooper, who wrote Behold a Pale Horse, which is a book I read back in the 90s. That's where I learned all this shit long before Alex Jones was even really a thing. But Alex was kind of his protege, and he repeated a lot of the shit. Like, it's true. They both called out that Osama bin Laden would attack America and that it would be used as an excuse to go into the Middle East. Basically, here we are, 25 years later. It's kind of funny that we have such a short memory. Our government's been lying to us forever. When Kennedy didn't want to go to war, he found out about the Bay of Pigs. He was so disgusted he didn't want to go to war, didn't want to go into Vietnam. He died pretty recently after, pretty soon after that. And then Lyndon Johnson was put in, and Johnson voted for war. And they used the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which was a U.S. ship, or a ship that was sank, as an excuse to go into Vietnam, as if Vietnam had this huge military that was attacking ships. The truth was, the whole thing was a ploy. It was a setup. And now Americans can actually go back and look at the reasons why we went to war, all the way up through the Iraq War and going into Afghanistan. And they were all built on lies. 100%. There were no weapons of mass destruction. There were no, mass chemical weapons facilities other than the ones that we helped Saddam build back in the day when we put him in. So the whole thing is a game. And I don't want to get into the war thing. I've talked about this before. I have strong feelings on war, but I also acknowledge that it is part of human nature. But I've actually talked with some people lately about this, and, some of my subscribers who think that war is inevitable. And I'd just like to say that war is only inevitable because we've been programmed to believe so. Conflict is inevitable. But a one-sided, brutal attack on another country or group of people is not legitimate, in my opinion. That when civilians are dying in 2024 and we have modern technology, then it's pretty crazy. As somebody said the other day, they said, wow, Israel can't find their own hostages, but they can find the leader, every single leader of these other groups, and confirm that they're all killed. The whole thing's a joke. And it's hard to see through the big picture of why countries go to war. It could be religious, it could be for land, it could be for both. But I think that most leaders through history have believed they're there by divine rule. Therefore, that allows them the ability to pretty much do whatever they want, and it's God's will. And we've lived in a little comfortable bubble for the last, say, 30, 40 years, where nothing major has happened, no major upheavals. 2020 was a drop in the bucket. It's nothing. We had a few protests, a few buildings burned, but the big issue that we're facing is really our ability to be so divided on issues we don't understand. And I'm just talking about my country. If we want to talk about world issues and instability, I would say there are several places to point. I mean, the U.S., we've always been an imperialist power that colonizes. Israel's doing that right now with our backing, and I don't support that. But I understand that it's not going to end. The Middle East has always been like this. I just don't want the U.S. to be threatened by the actions of, some morons in office somewhere else. I have my own opinions about where our tax dollars should go, because if we're spending $20, sending $20 billion to Israel this month or for this next package, and you think about that we need about that for hurricane survivors, and up in North Carolina where, they got devastated. North Virginia, or sorry, no, North Carolina. I was thinking Virginia. I'm not an East Coast guy. I live in Oregon, but I have empathy for the people in the mountains. I've watched how these floods totally washed out entire areas and that they're cut off from everything. And I know a lot of people are screaming, well, FEMA isn't out there helping the people and they don't have enough money because this or that. Or the one I've heard most is, they spent all this money on immigration. Now they don't have enough money for the people of the U.S. I call bullshit, not because whether that's true or not, the fact is we have the money. The U.S. has the money. We have the ability to do whatever we need to do. We always have. And it's ridiculous that anyone suffers in this country when we can send billions off to war, spend $1 trillion on our military, including black ops every year and black budgets and all the bureaucracy involved in it. How many trillions did we spend in Afghanistan and for what? So it can be worse than ever? And, since, as long as my parents or me have been alive, what war has actually benefited anyone? Anyone. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what any war that we've been involved in, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, now we're going to be going into Iran probably. And I'm not going to say U.S. troops will set foot there, and I damn well hope they don't. But I want to stay out of this. I want the U.S. to be a safe place to live. It's not about being selfish or not helping our countries, our allies. I believe that they've committed war crimes in Israel and that we should not send them any more weapons or money. And sorry to bring that up again, but, and this brings me back to what I was going to say at the beginning, that my point of this isn't to rally about one pointer or not, but say that I respect all of your opinions as well. That guy, Harold, that sent me the computer, I mentioned this in the previous podcast and video, I think. I said, and I just was checking my emails and he sent me an email saying, he hopes the computer's working well. He's like, he said he'd just listened to the first of my podcast. He hadn't really listened to him before. And of course, he totally disagreed on the Israel thing. But he said it in a kind way. Like, I respectfully said, right on, yeah, we all have different opinions, and many of these issues are very complex. And I realize the nuance. But the point was that a person who even slightly knows another person through an interaction isn't as likely to jump down their throat and attack them. It's funny, if you can even put a face on a person, unless you really hate them, you're probably less likely to attack them. If you see them in a comment section and they say something inflammatory, it's easy to jump on that and just be like, oh. And, it's difficult because we want to express how we feel about all the issues. But the truth is, I think we need to come together on the fact that there are people out there who are shaping the future of this world, and we're allowing it to happen. And when folks think that's a conspiracy, they think it's all a lie, that there's no shadow government. I've had the debate with people before. They say there's no, only a couple. And people I know well, like family members, that say there's no deep state, for example. And then I would try to explain, well, here's what that means. Kind of a shadowy government behind the government that really pulls the strings. People who have been here for a long time, old blood, the ones who stay in the shadows, the smart people, the smart wealthy, the bigwigs in the world who run shit. And they don't drive every part of the economy. The economy does what it does. People buy and sell and trade. But these are the folks who get together and make the decisions. And this goes beyond groups like the Bilderberger meeting or the Trilateral Commission or Davos or the World Economic Forum, which are all groups of basically just wealthy people who think that they know what's best. And here's what I've discovered about those kind of people. Not only are they the biggest threat to world peace because of their arrogance, and yes, many of them are sociopaths, but they truly believe that they are more important than you and me. And I want to make this is an important point, because I know a lot of people who are on the same level as me who, think they're more important than other people. There are a lot of narcissistic folks in the world, and I totally understand that. But when you consider that a lot of the most powerful people in the world are extremely not just narcissistic, but truly believe that their importance allows them to, you know, fly everywhere with their jet to another town, just an hour away, an hour drive, or travel with these huge entourages, spending all this money in gas guzzling, like bulletproof vehicles. And then they have the nerve to go on a commercial and tell you, turn off your lights at night and be sure to turn your energy down, turn your heat down. You can just wear more clothes and have a blanket. And by the way, you don't need to, buy a house. You don't need to buy a car. You don't even need to buy a refrigerator. You can just rent all these things. And hey, maybe we'll just make the government can help run it, and then we can regulate it better. And, it sounds ridiculous, but here we are. Like going down that slippery slope, because it's only a matter of time till words turn to actions. And it's not like I believe we're going to be eating bugs and living in cubicles and be genetically altered in 10 years. But if we allow it, it will be likely in 20 years. Like, we're on the edge with AI. This is the scariest part of it. AI can decide what's best for each person, whether it's right or not. But with all the information that's out there, let's just say that every time you use a card at the grocery store, your Safeway Club card, or, something to save $1 or use coupons and then use your ID, everything has been saved, and there are no secrets anymore. You just have to be smart enough, savvy enough as a consumer not to buy into the bullshit. You might get ads, you might get commercials, but bigger than that, you might get denied health insurance, right? Because AI saw you drinking a beer on a video once. Or just buying it at the store. I'm saying it's not something that we should fear. It's something we should embrace, because we can't get away from it. And that means that, instead of fighting amongst each other over what side of the political spectrum you're on, instead of fighting about which religion you have, let's get together and stand up as proletariats, as the weaklings, as the blue-collar workers, and actually demand change in the world, because we have the most power. We are the vast majority. When people talk about the 1% and how they're all powerful, just remember the other 99%. We're 99 fucking percent, okay? Anything is possible. And there's nothing that scares people with power more than an organized mob, and the internet has allowed this connection. So what happens is, anytime a group gets together and tries to do something for the right reasons, it takes time to gain support. And then these websites get shut down, people get shut down. There is a very strong presence online of people who are policing it to make sure that anything gets too big gets taken down. Sounds ridiculous, but why would it be? What government wouldn't protect cyberspace, right? So people have to be smarter. It's like a word of mouth thing. Like, oh man, just came to mind. I just pictured the Guy Fawkes mask. November, what was it? Oh, November. Now I can't remember. That movie is so great. Yeah, I won't go into that one. Anyway, what was it? Oh, shit. Well, people need to rebel in their own way, and they need to find a way to stand up, but not against each other, because liberals aren't the problem and conservatives aren't your problem. This is the most preposterous, ridiculous time ever. And there have been times of intensity where we want to think a candidate's going to save us. I don't think anybody really believes either candidate has the solutions. It's just that they want to fight. Why not fight against the system itself and realize that you're being hoodwinked all the time? That politicians just want your fucking money so they can get elected, right? They're constantly harassing people for their cash. It shouldn't be that way. Elections should be available for many people. There wasn't even a debate. Like, this is a weird time in history, and we're just kind of like glossing over it. Like, oh, what do you do? You know? And that's all you can do. That's what I've been doing. So, I say, how do we fix this shit? We can't vote our way out of it. And we can't seem to even talk our way out of it with one another without arguing. And we sure as hell can't fight our way out of it with bombs or, nukes. But, hopefully that doesn't end up being, the way people decide to go out. But with the arrogance of leaders out there right now, I just wouldn't be surprised. Not that I think they want to kill everyone, but if one mistake happens, it's over. You know what? Fortunately, there are many, redundancies in place. And there were a couple potential nuclear wars we almost had, where nukes were launched. They were stopped by intelligent operatives that working for the military, not the leaders themselves. Sometimes they were ordered to shoot or fire, and they didn't. They hesitated. There was one guy, and one was a Russian guy, who saw these incoming, blips. Turned out, I think they were like geese or something, but they thought they were nukes. I mean, you got to be cautious. Shit can happen. We've been pretty lucky up to this point. But I don't really fear nukes, although I live near Portland. But, if they do hit Portland, that's fine. I mean, not fine, but I know that I live in the gorge, and the wind usually comes from the east. If I saw that shit go down, my family and I could head into the mountains and have a safe place for drinking water and everything else. So I do have a plan. I'm looking at my emergency seeds right now, actually. Not much, but, enough to feel confident, I guess, because if something like that really did happen, there'd probably be nowhere to go, right? Anyway, the only things that I really worry about are natural disasters. Like, we're supposed to have a big earthquake here, but also it could be a simple, worldwide, 3-year, winter by asteroid impact or anything. It could be anything. Who knows? Whatever happens is usually the shit you don't expect, right? So, whatever. We'll see what happens. We'll just see what happens. I guess that's my rant for right now. It was just kind of a ramble, and I'll talk to you all next time. Have yourself a wonderful Saturday evening, and be sure to check out all the cool things in the world you want to see. Or my podcast, 15-Minute Free Thinking. Or, if you want to contribute, you can check out Patreon or donate through PayPal. Thank you all again for listening, and I'll see you next time. Be well.